Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with victory strategist, award-winning author and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
Welcome. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly, that recovering good girl and your victorious woman empowerment partner. And you know, this is where us victory chicks and you men who care about us meet on Fridays to chat about things we could do to overcome our challenges, get empowered, and make our lives sparkle. Thanks for coming today. I'm glad you're here enjoying a summer Friday Happy Hour with me. You know, in the past couple weeks, I've been talking about how contentious things have become since the last election, and I can't even read the Facebook posts. Well, today's guest noticed the same thing, and he created a very unique way of helping people deal with it. It's called subway therapy. I met its creator, Levee Chavez, when I was in New York a couple weeks ago. You know, he's a young guy who got this crazy idea, and it seems to be that it's caught on like wildfire. So he'll be here to talk with us about what subway therapy is and how it's made a difference to so many people. So how was your week? Now, I don't know about you, but when the days are longer, I feel I have so much more time in my day. Well, maybe not so much more time in my work day, because I never feel like there's enough time in my work day. But in the winter, when it gets darker earlier, I always feel like I should be, going to bed after dinner. Now, I don't, of course, but I feel like it's just that I want to get under the covers and stay warm. It's like hibernating. So in the summer, because I come home and it's still light out for a couple hours, and I know I can take a walk after dinner, enjoy a cup of tea or a glass of wine on the deck or, that kind of stuff, I feel like there are more hours in my day. Of course, and then in the summer, there's the ice cream, like the kind I had in Strasbourg last weekend. So I was in Scotland, Pennsylvania for Joseph's reunion weekend, and we drove home on Route 30 from that. Scotland's near Chambersburg, so we drove home like through Gettysburg and York. And then as we got closer to Lancaster, the more traffic there was around the two big outlets, and like the Rockville and the other one, it just got to be too much. So I checked in with Waze Lady, and she found us a back road that took us away from Route 30 and sort of a back road into Strasbourg, where, and I'll bet most of you know it, there's that corner store that has the fabulous ice cream. Now, of course, since Joseph and I were right there, we had to stop. Joseph didn't think about what to order. He just ordered his usual butter pecan. Not me. I had to taste test a couple of different flavors first. And then the one I decided on was called coconut caramel pecan. I'd never had it before, so I just got a small one because I wasn't positive I was going to like it and I want to waste the calories. But boy, was I sorry that I just ordered a small one because it was the best ice cream I think I've had all year. I enjoyed every lick of that ice cream and every little bite of the coconut caramel pecan ice cream that dripped on the waffle cone that it was in. And I have to tell you the truth, by that time on Sunday night, I really appreciated it. After the weekend in Scotland, Pennsylvania, it was either that or a stiff drink. And, I was in Strasbourg. The ice cream was right there and the alcohol wasn't. Not that Scotland or Chambersburg, where Joseph and I stayed, are bad. They aren't. Chambersburg is fine, and Scotland is a cute little sleepy burb of mostly houses. So that wasn't it. But where Joseph and I went to boarding school was a tough place. Scotland School opened after World War I. In fact, here's something interesting. And at first, it startled me. When I realized that, it startled me. I was looking at a newspaper article from, I think it was the late 1920s. It talked about how the school was started then, and it said that it was for children of deceased veterans from what they called in the 1920s the Great War. You know, I had to read it twice because in my lifetime, that war was always called World War I. But in the 1920s, it was the only such war. Last weekend was the first time I ever thought about how, for the people of that day in the 1920s, 100 years ago, that war was the war to end all wars. Those citizens never imagined that there would be another war, and certainly not another world war. Now, for those of us who came later, we always knew World War I and World War II because that was how our history was. But for those first students at Scotland School, it wasn't their history. Only the one great war was theirs. And in that war, because of the school they were in, they had lost a parent during it. Well, now, by the time Joseph went to Scotland, it was a state-run residential school specifically for veterans' children. And, you know, you've probably heard me say it before because I've talked about Scotland before. Nobody went there for a good reason. So as is typical of any reunion, it brings up a lot of old feelings. And for some reason, and maybe because I'm a good listener, a lot of Joseph's classmates tell me their sadder memories of being at Scotland School. And not so much what happened at school, but what was going on in their lives that got them to Scotland School. Now, frankly, for most of them, being at Scotland School is 100% a better and safer environment than what was going on back at their homes. If they stayed there, a lot of them might have ended up in jail or become alcoholics or drug addicts. You know, but you know how it is when you're a kid. You don't usually understand that kind of stuff. What you understand is that you're being sent away. And you know, those kinds of feelings, if you let them, can steal the joy in your adult life. So when the classmates are there, they talk about old memories, and you know, they share with me, you know, I guess I would say they share with me some of their more painful memories. But, you know, it's not all hard stories. Many kids, like Joseph, lived there from the first or second grade until they got into high school. So as is typical with kids, especially boys, they were rebellious and got into trouble. Now, at reunion, many of them take great pleasure in describing some crazy thing they did that was against regulations and how they did, or most especially how they didn't, get caught doing it. So, though Joseph wasn't one of those rebels, he hung out with a lot of guys who were, and they did, from the stories I've heard, pulled lots of shenanigans. So I know when I see 3 or 4 of them in a huddle with devilish grins, I know they're reliving some great teenage escapade. That part's one of the fun things about going back to the reunion. You know, any reunion. At my last reunion, I connected with Kathy, the girl who was my best friend in high school. Now, Kathy and I were both in the camera club. And back in the day, you'll remember this. Most of you will remember this. When we took pictures, we used film. And the film had to be developed before you could see the picture. No digitals, no selfies. Where you could see immediately whether you got a good shot or not. You had to wait for the film to be developed. Well, that's what Kathy and I did, usually for the school newspaper and yearbook. Yes, I was one of those geeks on the school newspaper. What, you think I could have been playing hockey? Not a chance. I couldn't even make the intramurals. I couldn't even make the intramurals in basketball, and I played basketball in grade school. But get this, Kathy was living in California and hadn't been back to school for years, and she wanted to see our old camera room, which just happened to be in the basement of a 100-year-old building. And it's a decrepit-looking place with a bunch of storage room and a huge octopus-like heating system. I'm not sure that bothered me back then. In fact, I'm sure that it didn't, because I remember in my senior year, this was my shenanigans, when I was so ready to be done with high school, You remember how that was, don't you? Like you just wanted to get out of there. Well, I would cut school assemblies and instead go to the camera room. Yes, you heard me. This good girl actually had a slight rebellious streak. Okay, some of you really were rebellious and probably laughing your butts off thinking about how mild that missing school assembly was compared to some of the things you did. But I was so passive-aggressive, or maybe I should say sneaky rebellious, that I only demonstrated my insurgence when I could defy authority in a way I knew that nobody knew that I was doing it. And in my case, it was hiding out in the camera room during school assemblies. But here's the thing. When I went back to the school recently, Kathy and I went down to the basement, and it scared the hell out of me. It was dark. It was dank. It looked like a perfect group breeding ground for critters, like bugs, mice, and even rats. So I think it was so funny that at 16 or 17 years old, I would go down to that musty room alone, load up a couple trays with chemicals, develop a couple rolls of film, and stay there till I heard the rest of the school leave in the assembly hall. Then I'd quickly clean everything up, sneak up the stairs, and join my classmates as though I had just left to go to the ladies' room. I certainly wouldn't do the same thing today. But, it's another world now. And not only are our pictures digital, but we have more scary things to worry about than bugs and mice. Like what happened this week to the Republican Senator Steve Scalise and the 4 others who were shot at on that baseball field while they were practicing for the annual congressional ball game. There's so much craziness going on with our politics these days, and that's why I asked Matthew Levee Chavez to join us. I met him in New York last month, and he started something called subway therapy. You have to hear about it and how it's caught on, and even become international. He's an interesting guy, and I want you to meet him. So listen, go get some good happy hour something to drink, and when we come back, I'll be here with Matthew Levee Chavez. You're listening to that Friday Happy Hour.
Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself? And now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm here with Matthew Chavez, who likes to be called Levee. Let's find out why. Welcome, Levee. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing very well, thank you. So, when we met last month, I was on my way to Starbucks concession at the Chavez Center. Mm-hmm. And, Levee, you were sitting there in front of a wall with sticky notes on it, and you caught my attention, and you invited me over, and I'm so glad you did. Would you tell my listeners what you were doing there?
Sure. Well, I was at Book Expo and at Book Con because I was spreading the word about my new book that's coming out. It's called Signs of Hope, Messages from Subway Therapy. And I had a whole bunch of sticky notes because in the time after the election, I brought a bunch of sticky notes into the subway system in New York, and somewhere around 50,000 people wrote on notes expressing how they felt. And because of that, I have a book coming out, and I spend my days talking with young people about how important their voice is, and I try and do an interactive exhibition like that one that helps people to interact and connect to each other and not feel so alone.
And that's a neat thing, and it was fun when I did it. And I didn't know what to put on the board, and I didn't necessarily have a message of hope. I just wrote, I love my life, and posted it because I thought that was like a really positive thing that I could say.
That's perfect.
But now your name is Matthew Chavez, and and you've adopted the name Levee. So I think it's neat. Why? Would you tell that to my listeners?
Sure. When I was younger, I grew up in Gilroy, California, which is the garlic capital. And right next to my house, there was a levee, and I used to walk on it a lot, and I used to play in the creek there. And if anyone listening isn't sure about what a levee is, it's an embankment next to a river. And so when there's inclement weather or periods of heavy rain, instead of that little creek flooding the surrounding area, they build a levee next to it so that when the water rises, that extra flow stays on the right track, and it just continues to be just a little, maybe a forceful river, but it stays on the right path. And so, what I thought was really important, especially in the time after the election, a lot of people were overflowing with emotion and energy, and while they might be really mad at something that was really far away from them, it seemed like people were getting really upset and hurting the people who were closest to them. And so I kind of adopted Levee. I came up with that idea to use Levee as an alternate name a long time ago, and then I never really did it. And then when I started doing subway therapy, I thought it was a good embodiment to help people channel their negative energy into something that's more productive and doesn't hurt the people around them.
Levee, is there something in your background or your education that lent itself to being the one who thought up subway therapy?
Well, I've been doing subway therapy. A lot of people don't know this, but I've been doing subway therapy for about 1.5 years without the sticky notes.
You were telling me this, and I thought this was so interesting.
It was just conversation. So I'd dress up what I imagined a therapist looked like a brown suit with a tie, glasses, and a watch. And then I would put some wall art up, and I would sit at a table with 2 chairs and talk to strangers. I did that for almost 1 year before I ever used sticky notes. Now, when I was going to school, I studied creative arts, and I was really interested in why people are creative. But, it was kind of a bit of performance art that I learned from school, and then I was an educator for a long time. I shouldn't say that. My mom's been an educator for a long time. She's been teaching, I think.
So you sort of have it by osmosis.
Almost 30 years now, and I respect her work so much. But I was teaching long enough to pick up some tools that were useful for crisis management or navigating kind of troubling situations with groups of people. And I was always really interested in helping other people, so I did freshman orientation, and I was in a group that helped students transition from junior high to high school, and as well as high school to college. I started clubs. I was really interested in engaging with the public and trying to help people to get through rough times. So I think all of the things that I've done basically lend me the skills so that I could do this kind of work. And I was really, really lucky that I had done all the things that I did because, for example, I was only talking to people. Every 4 hours, I might only talk to 15 or 20 people. And one time I talked to a person for 3.5 hours, just one person.
Oh, my.
And after the election, I thought to myself, wow, people are really speechless today. They're really not going to be able to communicate verbally well. I thought about my experience working in classrooms where students were struggling to use their words, and writing was always a good tool that I used to help students express themselves in a different way. And so I just brought a bunch of writing materials, and it really took off from there.
Well, Levee, when we met in a business situation, and I felt like I was in a safe place. But I have to be honest with you, and you have a suit and tie, and you're charming.
Thank you.
But if you approached me in the subway, I'm not sure I would have been so interested in engaging with you.
Sure.
Did anybody think that what you were doing was weird, or that like you were like a stalker or a masher or something?
Well, one of the advantages I have in terms of being in public is that I'm stationary. I'm just sitting in the middle of a walkway, or not in the middle, but off to the side, or sitting at the subway platform. And it's actually really common in New York to have buskers or people who are playing music or performing on the street. So I don't think that what I was doing coded in New York like anything strange at all. But some people thought it was really unique. I mean, lots of people that walked by said things like, I've never seen that before, and I've lived in New York my whole life. Or, people thought it was weird, but it was just weird enough that it was more funny weird than
scary weird. Yeah. Huh.
I also never really I'm really not a fan of talking people into doing things. So I like to smile. I like to wave. I like to, kind of invite people to come. But I'm not going to talk someone in. Hey, wait. I'm not going to do that.
And that's true, because when I wasn't even like that close to you when I passed by your subway therapy wall at Book Expo, and I just, for some reason, because it was so colorful, I must have glanced over, and you just sort of held up a sticky note, and you were very inviting, and I thought, I wonder what he's doing. So it wasn't. You're right. It wasn't creepy. It was just. It was an easy engagement, but as I said earlier, it was like. I knew I was in a pretty safe situation, but I could see where if you were that way on the subway and in New York, that maybe that wouldn't be so odd. What kinds of people were most likely to talk to you?
I had a business person come up to me one time, and we sat for a little bit, and he goes, "You got to monetize this. How do you, what kind of people do you talk to? You got to do this for a month, think about all the people you talk to, and then find a way to make money." And it was really funny because when I was talking to him, I was thinking about it.
Huh.
And there really isn't any one particular type of person that sits down with me. I thought that was fascinating for me to think about. But really, I've talked to every person you can possibly imagine, especially after the sticky notes. I mean, there were thousands of people per day, writing notes, and then hundreds of those people stopped and said something to me, or we had a small conversation. And it really wasn't any one type of person. I talked to Republicans and Democrats, liberals, conservatives, people of all different races, sexual orientations, backgrounds of any kind. I mean, really, it seems like I've talked to the gamut of people in New York, and it's been really, really cool.
So there wasn't any one like age group, or it was just wide open?
No, I think it really depends on where I'm sitting. If I'm at Union Square, it's closer to some colleges, and so younger people might stop. And I end up talking about a group of girls will walk up and they'll want to talk about boyfriend drama, or young guys will walk by and have something going on. But even in the park, I talk to people who are homeless. I talk to people who are really well off and work in whatever field they work in. Even in locations where would be, say, near a college campus, I would probably have more college students. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that's the only type of person that comes up to me. It really is, I guess, attractive to just about anybody that is curious. I think the number one person that is interested in my project is a curious person,
I can
which
believe
could
that.
be anyone, right?
That was me. I was curious. I looked over and I was curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can see that. Levee, we need to take a break, so we're going to go away for a couple of minutes, and when we come back, I have so many more questions.
All right, I'll try and keep my answers short.
So everybody stay close. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm here with Matthew Levee Chavez, and we're talking about Signs of Hope, his new book that's coming out shortly, and Subway Therapy. And Levee, I was talking earlier about going to my spouse's reunion and how many of his classmates talked to me about the difficult situation that got them put into that school. It was sort of like reunion therapy. So for your Subway stories, what kinds of things did people tell you? Did people get really personal? Did they keep it light? What was going on with that?
Oh, people go really into it. It's pretty amazing what people are willing to talk to a stranger about. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people have that experience where they just ended up talking to somebody and you ended up sharing a lot. And for me, if I'm like putting myself out there and I'm that stranger, I mean, people have talked to me about their relationships or their failing marriages. People talk to me about, eating disorders. I mean, all kinds of things. I mean, it's how difficult it is to be an immigrant in America, job stress, goal, like how to achieve goals. People ask me all sorts of things, really. Just, Yeah, I had one woman that talked to me about how she was stabbed and her experience about, and how that affected her life, and really just, it's hard to pick them out because they're all so interesting and diverse. There's just stories of all kinds.
And people are interesting, aren't they, Levee? It's like when you talk to them and they open up to you like that, don't you feel like you're able to touch their souls?
Yeah, and for whatever reason, that kind of experience happened to me all the time. I'd be on the bus, and some woman would start to tell me about her wild, apartment with the landlords sending people from Haiti to, chop her head off, and so she had to flee her apartment,
oh my
stuff
goodness,
like that.
Yeah.
And that was before I ever did Subway Therapy. It was just random people would come and tell me the craziest stories.
You just have that aura about you, huh?
I guess so, yeah. I figured I would just lean into it, start listening.
Yeah. Were there any common themes, or was there anything in particular that people seem to talk about more than anything else?
I think people talk about relationships more than anything else. It's not surprising. In our media, we're very focused on finding love and the right love, and so to me, that's a pretty common denominator when I listen to people. Is there's a lot of people who are really looking for someone special, or looking to make their current relationship better, or looking to figure out if they should love the person they're with.
Mm-hmm. I believe that, Levee, that one thing. My listeners know that my next book coming out is called The 5-Year Marriage, and the one thing I think that everybody is looking for is intimacy. Mm-hmm. And they want to be able to connect with you at a level, connect with somebody else. It doesn't have to be everybody else, but one person where they can just connect, where they really feel like you've touched them and they've touched you, at a social, spiritual level or something like that. Mm-hmm. Did you have that experience?
Yeah, I have that experience pretty often. And when I'm sitting out there, I talk to people that don't have anyone else to talk to, seemingly. And the reason I started this project was to be there for them, because I have family and friends that I talk to when I'm feeling down?
Mm-hmm.
Or what about people who don't have family or friends or religion or access to therapy or whatever it is that helps people to connect to their community?
And that's a large number of people.
Totally. And so I wanted to be out there to see if I could try and alleviate some of that stress that's caused by a lack of a connection with another person.
And so when you did, so then you so you were talking to people one-on-one, and then you did you got these sticky notes,
Mm-hmm.
and I was looking at your book Signs of Hope, and you have different chapters, and one chapter is called, I guess it was from a sticky note, it was called Listen to Each Other.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of things are in that chapter of Listen to Each Other?
Well, in the book, I wanted to show people that while it was an event that happened I did the sticky notes shortly after the election happened, most of the notes didn't relate to politics at all. It was emotions that were in the range of human experience. And so in the Listen to Each Other section, I collected a bunch of notes that were people that were encouraging each other to listen or to learn from each other. And so some of the notes in that section are like just keep making music, or don't forget to breathe. One of them says, I dare you to simply listen. There's a really cute one with a taco drawn on it with a smiley. It's like a taco with a face, and it says, we've got problems. Let's taco about them.
How cute, yeah.
Things like that, and just words of encouragement for other people.
What are some of your favorite stories from Subway Therapy?
One of my favorite stories was a family that used to walk, about a family who used to walk by, and there was this woman who walked by, I think it was the first day that I was out there on November 9th, and there were two kids, kind of looked at their mom and looked at the notes, and then she kind of gave them the okay to come up and write something. And so they were writing something, and I was helping them to think about what to write, and I was looking at her, and she was kind of speechless at that point, and so I walked up to her and I said, hey, are you okay? And she kind of shook her head in a way that suggested, I'm trying to keep it together. I can't talk right now. And so I just said, I hope you have a good rest of your day. And then her kids finished up writing the note, and then they kept walking. And then I saw the two of them and either their mom or their dad for like the next 5 days, because I was in the subway for almost 10 or 12 hours for almost 2 weeks. And I think it was around day 5 or 6 that I saw her. And she finally came up and was like, today I'm ready to write a note. And then she said, every day we walk through this tunnel, and it's basically the worst part of our day. And after the election, everyone was feeling really terrible, and I was feeling like I didn't know what to do, and I was trying to help my children to process what was going on. And so walking through this area of the subway was going to be the worst part of the worst day. And then there were all these notes here, and you were here, and it wasn't.
Oh, neat.
And that made me feel really wonderful. And it stories like that made me feel like I was doing the right thing in the right place.
That is really a neat thing. Like that, that even if it's just one person that you helped, that it made a huge difference in her experience, not just that day, but that whole week, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice. But I'm really curious now. The subway walls are tile, and you're putting sticky notes on top of them.
Right.
I've been really curious. Didn't you get in any trouble with the authorities? Didn't anybody come and make you go away?
Well, I almost got arrested once, but it worked out.
I want to hear that story. How did you talk them out of arresting you?
There were two locations that were very pivotal in the whole experience. One was at Union Square, and one was at 14th Street, 6th Avenue, and this is on the L train in New York. And in the place where I was, I basically got no attention from the MTA or from the police until someone reported that one of the notes had something racially insensitive on it, because I wasn't really censoring any of the notes. It was about free expression, and regardless of what people wrote, I basically let it stand. And at Union Square, there was no filtering of the notes at all. People were writing mostly really, really positive things, but every once in a while somebody would write something bad. But everyone kind of policed themselves. If they saw something that they didn't like, they would write a note and stick it over the top of it or something like that. And in my location, we had a bunch of police come down to see what was going on, and the police officer that came down looked at all the notes, and he's like, I can't look through all these to see which ones are offensive, and he asked me if I was doing something that was offensive. I said no, and I explained to him what I was doing. And then the MTA at that point had kind of adopted this stance that they were going to promote free speech through this sticky note method. And so it got to stay up, and I didn't get arrested.
Well, that was a good thing.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah. What are some of the weirder posts that you've seen that people have posted?
Weirder posts? I mean, there's some pretty strange ones that were about that weren't about the election, but were just kind of like conspiracy stuff. Those ones I always thought were kind of strange. Someone wrote send nudes, which seemed an odd thing to write on a sticky note to post anonymously.
What was it?
They wrote send nudes.
Oh,
which,
you're right. That is a little odd.
Yeah, and there wasn't like an email address or anything. It was just by itself on a sticky note. I think people wrote things that they would write on message boards to kind of troll people online, but in physical form, they're a little bit out of place. And so, but those were all the things that I thought were, kind of weird and strange.
How did you find all that time?
Oh, well, at the time I was getting into narrating audiobooks, and I was working on a career in commercial voiceover. I was just starting, basically. And I was working at a bar at night, and so basically I just abandoned all my other pursuits so that I could be there for other people. And I quit my job, and I stopped auditioning or doing anything audiobook related. I had gotten a contract actually to do an audiobook, and I called them. I said, hey, listen, I can't do it. I got to do this other thing.
Did anybody tell you that you were nuts?
Yeah, I think
like when you
thought
quit
I
your
was
job?
a bit strange. Luckily there was enough acclaim for the project that by the time people saw it, they thought it was something that was more impressive than weird. But, a lot of people walked by and gave me that look like, what are you, nuts? So I'm sure the people that thought that just kept it to themselves.
Well, probably. Was anybody ever, but did anybody ever say anything like that? Or did anybody ever make you feel unsafe?
Yeah, a couple of times I had people that kind of got in my face and had something to say, or, especially in that time after the election, a lot of people were really, really angry, and that anger would take whatever channel it could take. So I had people that were angry at me because I was doing something that wasn't enough. Like they wanted me to be out on the street protesting, and I had other people who thought it was, a liberal crying exercise, and would, walk by and say that. And nobody really ever bothered me. A couple of times I felt unsafe because people would get in my face or yell at me, but it was just people being angry, and it wasn't really anyone that I thought was particularly dangerous.
Mm. Well, it was a risk that paid off for you, Levee, because now you have this book, and I want to talk. We need to go for another break, but when we come back, let's talk about Signs of Hope.
That sounds great.
So everybody hang tight. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous victorious women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. This is Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Matthew Levee Chavez, and we're talking about his new book. We're talking about subway therapy and his new book, Signs of Hope. You know what, Levee, how did you choose that title? The titles are always so hard to choose.
They are. I thought a lot about it, and I talked to my friends and family and my team, and well, I thought that Signs of Hope was a good title because it captured the spirit of what the sticky notes did in the time when people really enjoyed them the most. I think a lot of people gave me feedback that the sticky notes were a symbol for them that made them feel more connected to their community, and that the future wasn't such a dark thing to walk into. And so Signs of Hope I thought was pretty appropriate.
And now what you did, and it was clever how the chapters looked in the promo that I received. All the chapters were sticky notes, and I mentioned the one earlier, but there were chapters like "My Heart is Heavy" and "I Will Stand Up for You." How did you decide which sticky notes went into which chapters?
Well, at first I looked through all the notes and I thought, what are people saying? And a lot of people talked about love and being there for each other, and they talked about fear, and they talked about being hopeful. And so what I did is, in the section that says, that starts with "I will stand up for you," are notes where people were standing up for each other, or they're notes that express some form of activism. In the section, or in the chapter "My Heart is Heavy," the notes express a heaviness. Let me read some of the notes. One that I'm reading that's going to be in the book is it just says "My heart is heavy," and there's another one that says, "I felt so hopeless until I saw this." And there's one that says, "I miss my son." And
wow.
There's one that says, "I'm so tired of being homeless, sad, alone. God, hear my cry." And so there were notes that people were writing that expressed a certain thing, and so I wanted people to be able to access that through the different chapters.
What are some of the in some of your chapters that are more upbeat? What are some of the things that people were saying?
Well, let's see. I wish you guys could see what I'm looking at, because I have the book in front of me, but it's in actual Post-it form, because they're all Post-its that are handwritten. So some of the more hopeful ones say things like, "This world is for you," or "Never lose hope." If you're reading this, you inspire me. Let's see. There's one that says, "Big things are coming your way." It's designed quite beautifully. It must have been a graphic designer that wrote that one.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, I think that it's really wonderful that people encourage each other without having ever, they don't know who's going to read that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really wonderful.
People, and wonderful enough that it has gone nationwide and even international. How did that happen?
Well, so, in the time after the election, I think a lot of people were looking for something hopeful, and there wasn't a whole lot of material out there. And so I was interviewed by news stations in the subway from Japan and China, from France and Italy and Germany, from Spain and different countries in South America. I mean, it was really, really amazing to talk to so many different people from different countries that were interested in sharing the story with their community at home. Mm-hmm. And then I was contacted by an artist not too long ago to do an event in Brussels, Belgium, and the International Day of Happiness, I believe, is on March 20th. And so I went to Brussels and I did a sticky note wall there, and 3,000 people wrote on notes in a few days. And in August, I'm going to go to Sweden to do something there, and people keep reaching out saying, hey, I'd love to bring this here. So I've had people that have reached out from London and Australia, from France, and I'm excited to go there eventually.
Sure, and this is really neat. You're a young guy, and people are like paying for you to go all over the world.
It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. I would like that kind of job myself.
You can come with me.
There you go. Well, I'm a good listener, so I could listen to those same stories. Good
I'm
for
sure
you for
everyone
doing
would
that.
miss you on the radio.
Oh, that was nice. Thank you. So what's next for you?
Well, so the next thing for me is going to be I'm working on a project with a friend of mine to do some more sticky note experiences that have extras attached, and I'm going to incorporate some augmented reality into the project. But really, Signs of Hope is the next thing, and that's going to be coming out on October 24th. I'm also going to be, I do a live, I do free advice live every once in a while on a platform called Twitch.com. And if anybody wanted to check that out, they can check it out at @ask_Levee. Every once in a while I go out and instead of putting subway therapy, I write Ask Levee on my sign. And then I encourage people to sit down and ask questions. If people are curious, if they have questions, they can ask me. But mostly everything right now, I'm very focused on Signs of Hope, messages from subway therapy. And, if anyone's interested in checking out what's next, they can go to subwaytherapy.com or check out my Facebook or Instagram @subwaytherapy. And
I posted a link to Subway Therapy and a link to your book is on Amazon in pre-order. So
that's right.
So my listeners can pre-order that book. And if you can't find it on Amazon, you can just go to the radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com and look at the link is there. Levee, your experiment was something else.
Well, I'm glad that you liked it.
Yeah, I'm glad you joined me today. And I'm sure my listeners got a kick out of this too, because it's a colorful thing and it's meaningful. So I'm glad that you were here.
Well, if anyone wants to, do something colorful wherever they are, anyone that's listening right now, you guys can feel free to reach out to me. There's a way to contact me through my website. And so if you want to do something in your community or if, right now, just yesterday I was at a school talking to some fifth graders about how important their voice is. And so if you're listening and you're an educator or, a librarian, if you want to have me come and talk at your school, just get in contact with me. I'd be happy to do that.
Are you there, Levee? Okay, well, we lost Levee, and I'll catch up with him later to say goodbye. But for you, Victory Chicks and you guys, I don't know what you have planned for the weekend, but if you're looking for something for tonight, there's a comedy competition at the Reactors Comedy Club in Glen Mills. And my friend, and you've met her here at Happy Hour, Teresa Hummel-Kralinger, has a hobby of doing stand-up. She and I do like that same kind of training kind of stuff, but her hobby is doing stand-up, and she won't be doing comedy. She's judging the competition. Well, yesterday she sent me an email and asked if I would be a judge with her, and for doing that I'd get in for free. Well, that was $20, so I was happy. So I said, heck yes, I'd be a judge. I've judged Toastmaster competitions and, before and some other things. So it'll be interesting to judge stand-up comedy. So listen, should I be like the Simon Cowell type or the sweet Jennifer Lopez type? All right, listen, I can't be the Simon Cowell type. I know how hard it is to get up in front of an audience, so I'll be the Jennifer Lopez kind. Now, if only I could have her flawless skin and her dynamite shape. Now, I'm pretty happy with myself. I'm grateful to be healthy. So listen, don't you know you're getting older when you start putting good health at the top of the values list instead of being a size 6? So listen, who am I kidding? In my adult life, at my skinniest, I was a size 14. And if I shopped in the maternity section, sometimes a size 12. But listen, I digress. If you're looking for some laughs, it's the Reactors at Routes 1 and 202. So that's what I'm doing tonight. And before my show, I'm meeting Teresa for dinner. And I have to tell you, Joseph was so funny. He wasn't sure if he was invited or not. But when I told him we were meeting at 5:30 and he doesn't finish work until 5, so he wouldn't get there then anyway, he decided to grab a bite on his way home and meet up at the Comedy Club at 7:30. So maybe you will too. And if you go, tell me you heard about it on the Friday Happy Hour. Okay, it's time for us to call it a week. Thanks for joining me today. And since we've been talking about signs of hope, I'm going to say adios today with a fabulous quote from, not Levee, but from Emily Dickinson, who said, "Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tunes without the words and never stops at all." Good one, huh? We can never stop having hope, huh? I wish all of you an abundance of hope this weekend. Have a victorious week, and join me again next Friday at the Friday Happy Hour. Talk to you then. Chen's on.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.